Hey guys, today we're going to discuss the new Arks of Omen mission pack, and it brings some incredible changes to the game. So without further ado, let's dive right in. And the first and biggest change is the change to the detachment. So we're going to receive a new Arks of Omen detachment, which is probably going to make all other ones obsolete. I have not seen any information about other detachments going away. They're probably going to stay as is, but there is mostly no real point to bring those detachments over the Arks of Omen one, because it's the one that just brings you all the advantages with almost no disadvantages. So previously we were highly limited in what we could do with our list building because all the detachments had their drawbacks. Firstly, you had to pay some command points for some of them, which is for the Vanguard, Outrider, and Spearhead. Battalion, Patrol, and Brigade did refund the command points. However, they had limitations in what you could bring. And also the battalion, for the battalion there was a so-called troop stacks, which you had to bring 3 troops units and 2 HQs to even have a battalion in your army. And also battalion only had 3 HQs and 6 elite slots, which for elites it was usually enough if you don't bring a bunch of like single small elite units, which was where you ran into a problem. And for HQs, some armies did struggle with fitting enough in there in a one battalion, and we're going to discuss, have some examples later in the video. Some armies had the no force org slot way to fit another HQ into it, like Thousand Suns, where if you could bring an Exalted Sorcerer, you could bring another just standard Sorcerer with without taking up a detachment slot. However, these rules were few and far between. So yeah, battalion wasn't bad, but you had to bring those 3 troop units, which was not always the perfect choice, not for all armies, and you did have some limitations in terms of units you could bring. Vanguard, Outrider, and Spearhead, again, they're not perfect because you had to pay 3 command points, which was not great before Nephilim, but when Nephilim kicked in, that it was just impossible. I said it multiple times, if you really want to play competitively, you have to have all the command points available to you at the start of the game. And probably only bring the most efficient relics and traits, those that really impact your game, so that you have something to play with in the actual game. Plus, you could only get 2 of each other non-specific slots. So if you don't know what Vanguard, Outrider, Spearhead do, you basically had you can bring 1 HQ and must bring 1 HQ and 3 choices of either heavy support Outrider or elite units, depending on which detachment that is. And you can only bring 2 of each other non-specific slots. So 2 fast attacks for the Vanguard, 2 heavy supports and 2 HQs, and 3, I think, troops units for the Vanguard, Outrider, and Spearhead, which was usually not very important because you did choose to have a Vanguard for the reason not to bring actual troops to save up points. The brigade was almost impossible to build. Only some Astra Militarum armies could probably run that. And I think I've seen only 1 or 2 brigades being used in all my Warhammer career, if I can call it that. So probably 1 or 2 times with some Astra Militarum players in 8th edition, not even in 9th. So Brigade is out of the consideration really, and Patrol is just too small because you only have like 3 troop units and 2 of each other choice, which is just not enough for a decent 2,000 point army unless you're bringing just full squads of Terminators and nothing else. So now with Arks of Omen, we get all the benefits of those specialized detachments like Vanguard and Spearhead, so you can bring actually a lot of your favorite units, but you can also bring a lot of all other unit types. And you have like 4, you can bring up to 4 HQs, you can bring up to 6 elites plus 3 specific slots for the elite characters. And it solves a big problem for when you want to bring a bunch of actual elite units, however you want some elite characters to support that. Say, I don't know, a Chapter Ancient in the Space Marine Army, and you had to sacrifice an entire slot to bring that guy unless you had some special rules. Like Death Guard had those. The Space Marine Company veterans did allow you to bring some stuff for free without taking up the slot, but that was difficult. It made you spend extra points. In this case, you don't have to spend any extra points, and you don't have to spend any command points for the detachment at all. All you have to do is just bring 1 HQ and 3 choices of any of like troops, elites, fast attack, heavy support, or even Lord of War, which is, I find it really funny. It will allow some people to bring, I don't know, some armies of 1 Farseer and 3 Wraith Knight, which is going to be awesome. So essentially, unless you're planning to run, I don't know, 8 Dreadnoughts or something crazy like 7 biker units, you're probably not going to run into a problem with building a detachment anymore. So essentially, it's a free-for-all compared especially to what we had before. And now let's quickly try to analyze how it's going to impact the game. What will change? I think everything will change because detachments are extremely important balancing factor for the game. They are the building blocks. They are the foundation of the game. And how we build our armies is eventually going to impact how the game is played. It's hard to predict everything that's going to change, but some things I think are very easy to predict. So firstly, the troops are likely going to have a hard time finding a way into lists where OPSEC is available by some other means, or maybe for some reason the player doesn't really want OPSEC, which I think would be a mistake, unless the troop units are really potent, like the troops, the Harlequin troop unit. So that troops unit is a very good one, so you probably don't want to get rid of it. However, for some armies, like say intercessors, I'm not sure that intercessors are that valuable that you don't really want to get rid of them and take, say, some Blade Guard veterans instead. All the high efficiency units will probably be always maxed out to have the best bang for your buck, and you will have the actual space in your detachment and points if we don't see any major hikes because of this detachment change. I mean, major hikes in the balanced data slate and all that. So if the prices are staying largely the same, we are going to see a bunch of high efficiency units because of the freed up detachment space and also some points from troop units that we're not going to bring anymore. All the armies that struggle to fit enough HQs into the detachment will be relieved, like the Blood Angels, Space Wolves, Thousand Suns. I've discussed that multiple times on this channel. The Blood Angels, they would like to have a captain, 2 Librarian Dreadnoughts, and a chaplain in their detachment. Or, I don't know, Sanguinor, captain, Librarian Dreadnought, and chaplain. And now we have that option. Same goes for the Space Wolves. We want Bjorn, we want the Captain Thunderwolf, we want the chaplain, and maybe Njal. And we want all that in our detachment, and we don't want to sacrifice one over the other because we need them all. Thousand Suns, the same here, the same story. We want a bunch of Exalted Sorcerers, and we want the Demon Prince, and we want the Infernal Master, we want the Ahriman. So we did not really have enough space for all HQs for a lot of HQ-reliant armies. And it'll be much easier to assemble knight armies. They didn't have that big of a problem, but now with 6 Lord of War slots, it'll be easier to bring several types of, say, War Dogs for the Chaos Knight armies, and etc. And also no command point requirements, because we initially, before that, we wanted to have either 3 Big Knights or 6 Armigers to have the full refund for the super heavy detachment. Now it's going to be much easier. So we're also going to receive the 2 new rules, the Battle Brothers rule, which is basically an easier time to soup for some armies. We don't have a full list of souping options. We have 2 good ones, which is bringing a free blade knight for the Imperium detachment, because you already are getting the Agent of the Imperium keyword if you're bringing 1 free blade unit in a detachment. But I'm guessing you don't have to spend command points for it. That's my thinking. I'm not sure, that's not really clear from the text as I was able to understand it. And that's probably good, because some armies will benefit from being able to bring 1 big knight. It will free up some combinations. I'm generally against soup, so I'm hoping the options will stay limited, because the change that they've brought with 9th edition, where souping was virtually gone from the game, is, I think, a good one, and it's better to stay this way generally, unless we're talking about some specific things like, say, a Freeblade Knight or the Tzeentch Demon's Detachment with the Thousand Suns army, which is another option we're going to receive. Another great freedom we'll get is for 1 command point, we'll be able to bring an extra 1 per detachment unit, which is like Citans, Captains, Autarch, Tau Commanders, Hive Tyrants, Lords of Contagion, and so on. All these units which we could only previously bring 1 in a detachment, we for 1 command point can bring another one, which is especially great for Citans, because I've always dreamt of being able to have several of those in 1 detachment, and spending 2 command points for an auxiliary support detachment was just stupid, in my opinion. And now we can do that same thing for 1 CP, which is great because CPs are very precious still. I don't see any big changes to command points coming with this update, so hopefully they'll change some things for Necrons as well. I'm only slightly worried about characters like Hive Tyrants, because I think they are a bit too powerful still, and I don't really want a bunch of them running around, so we'll have to see about that. And the last thing they've promised is new secondaries. The 2 secondaries they've shown to us are not actually new, so I'm not sure what they are talking about when they are saying new secondaries. They might mean that new are coming to some factions, and for some other factions we're just getting an update. So the Promethean Creed is just an updated version of what we already had in Nephilim, which is always great. Updates are good. In this case, the Promethean Creed was slightly nerfed, I think, for 1 point in one of the clauses that we have in the secondary. And the same goes, I think, for the Adorn the Canvas Eclectic for the Emperor's Children. So we don't have the full list of changes yet, so there is not much to talk about here. I wonder if the balancing of the secondaries is going to take into account the changes in the list building we're going to have, like, for example, more emphasis on OPSEC or troops units to fulfill some of the criteria for the secondary to be successful, actually. So, I don't know, doing an action with a troops unit is going to be easier than, say, with an OPSEC unit, and the OPSEC unit will be even easier than just a normal unit, or just impossible for other units to do. Maybe something of that sort. We'll have to see about that. So that's it, guys. I hope this video was useful for you. Let me know in the comments below what you think about all these changes. Is it going to be great, or is it going to rip the thin fabric of balance we might have had in the 40k into shreds and pieces? And I'll see you next time.